Ready when you are, Dave.
Okay. So warm welcome from all of us on the CoStar team to this careers workshop. We have an excellent set of speakers for you today, so I hope you find it really interesting and useful. So we have 5 speakers for you. They're each going to give you 4 slides about how they got into the career that they're in. What a day in the life of that job and that sort of thing. Then we're going to go into breakout groups. So you should have already selected which of the speakers you're interested to go into a breakout room with. If you haven't already specified, then you can choose when the breakout groups come up. It'll be there until about 5 to 1, and then we'll all come back together again in the main call. Then after that, you'll have the option of an extra 30 minutes with Katrina from our careers service. So I'm going to go through that. I'll run through the slides with each of the speakers talking in turn. If you can save any questions until you're in the breakout groups with the speaker that you've come here to talk to. Okay, so Doug, we're gonna start with you.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Doug, are you there?
Should be. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a little bit quiet to start with, but got you now. Okay.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon now, everyone, I guess. So, yeah, my name's Doug Pender. I work for a consultancy, an engineering environmental consultancy called JBA Consulting. So I'm a technical director in our marine and coastal resilience discipline. So my role is mainly to oversee all of our numerical modelling and data analysis work that we do on the coast. So what that does is it supports us develop and deliver coastal flood mapping, look and understand coastal erosion and morphodynamics. We do a lot of work in coastal hazard forecasting and early warning services, and a lot of that then feeds into the wider sort of decision making around coastal adaptation planning that we support our clients through. Let's continue now.
You ready for the next slide?
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
So I probably started with a very traditional career journey. I did an M.Eng in civil engineering at the University of Glasgow, so I finished that in about 2009. During that time, I did back then there was a lot of opportunities for internships and placements. I worked at several different engineering consultancies across a range of areas, so from rivers to coasts to environmental engineering work. I then went on after I finished that to work in consultancy for a very, very short period of time, designing steel sheet piles for harbours and concrete slabs to put containers on. I didn't enjoy it, so I had an opportunity to go back to university and study a bit more around the coast, and I did a PhD back at Glasgow as well, finishing that up in 2013. So after that, I worked in research a little while, had a research post looking at sort of fluvial morphodynamics and statistical modelling of rivers, which was great. Finished that up in 2015, and at that time I sort of wanted a change of direction. A lot of my research was quite applied, even back to my PhD. It always had a sort of practical outcome of it, so I kind of felt, I guess, a little bit of a fraud. I didn't really know what was going on in the real world, so I didn't actually know what was happening. So I thought I'd better actually go out there and see what was getting done in practice. So I worked for a large European consultancy firm called Sweco. So I started there in 2015 as a flood risk engineer. That involved a range of different types of work: numerical modelling, structural design, economic appraisals, looking at environmental impact assessments, all sorts of things for different types of developments and different types of projects. It was mainly focused on rivers, and I always kind of enjoyed the coast. That was what my sort of PhD research was about. So I had an opportunity to join my current organisation, JBA, as a coastal engineer in 2016. So I took that, and I've been there ever since, 9+ years now, I guess, and progressed through from that engineering position now up to technical director and the overall lead for our coastal resilience service area. So my career, it's not really had any. It's been, I guess, reasonably, traditional progression through from sort of junior engineer up to where I am now as a technical director. But I've done a lot of different things. I've worked in research. I've worked in a lot of different sort of practical applications of engineering consultancy. So the whole thing's been quite challenging. It's been very diverse. I've had a lot of continual learning from lots of different people. I've never really always tried to make the most of understanding the best and the worst out of individuals that I'm working with to try to shape what it is that I want to do. And what that has kind of led me towards is this sort of, I guess, philosophy of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So I've always been uncomfortable. Everything's been a challenge, but that's kind of all right as long as you sort of understand, as long as you understand where you are within that sort of space. So I suppose that's been my sort of biggest thing to get to where I am today. In terms of the satisfaction I get out of it, more recently I've been a lot more widely involved in the strategic direction of what it is that we're doing. So looking at new areas of work, expanding our services, expanding our clients, progressing and figuring out how we sort of navigate this sort of wider coastal resilience space, moving away from sort of traditional engineering and modelling projects to something that's a little bit more diverse, and having that background of working in research and working across rivers and economics and all sorts of things is going to help me do that. Let's move on now, David. Oh, so my day-to-day, I noticed Susan's on the call and I've not listed her projects. We work a lot of councils, so I've not been working on yours this week, Susan, sorry. But it's mainly focused on project work. So a diverse range of clients. Contracts can range from a month to several years, multi-year contracts that we're kind of working on. Me personally, I'm probably actively involved in about 20+ projects at the moment. That ranges from technical leadership, so just overseeing a lot of our technical work, supporting my colleagues within the team, with other teams undertaking the sort of day-to-day modelling and analysis and whatever else needs to be done. But in a lot of these, it's also the sort of project management, contract management, and the overall direction of the project that I'm kind of responsible for. And I mentioned previously, I also coordinate the overall direction of our service. So that is about sort of network building, looking at new opportunities, looking at work, speaking to clients, speaking to prospective clients, thinking about recruiting, who are the right people to actually bring into the organisation. So our sort of portfolio and direction of work has changed quite dramatically even in the last few years. And also a big part of that is undertaking our own research, but also supporting research with academic partners through PhDs or postdoctoral funded things. So as a bit of a snippet this week, I've worked quite a lot actually with a colleague helping to develop some numerical models. We're working on a very big coastal management scheme in the south coast of England, looking at beach erosion and protection of properties against beach erosion. So a lot of work on developing numerical models that can kind of predict that and integrate that into the design. I was also up in Aberdeen earlier in the week, and that was slightly different. And that was looking at supporting them hosting and coordinating a workshop on adaptation governance. So how can they sort of more effectively set themselves up as an organisation to start thinking about all the different elements of adapting their communities on the coast. I've had a project board meeting for our internal research and development programme that we have at the moment on how we, I guess, integrate machine learning into a lot of the modelling work that we're doing a lot quicker. So it's very interesting. We're doing work in Ghana, so we have another part of the business that supports sort of wider natural hazard resilience across the globe. So we've got a big contract at the moment looking at Ghana and understanding coastal and erosion risk and helping them look at integrated sort of risk management frameworks. Well, we have a PhD project with the University of Edinburgh on Earth observation at the coast, and then right down the bottom it's a lot of contractual stuff for a subcontractor that's doing some quite complicated and long-term sediment tracing for a couple of years. So working on that as well. So very, very varied, lots of different places and lots of different elements to it. Just move on now. So there's various ways now. It's a lot easier to sort of get into this field. There's still obviously the traditional route, which is probably typical for people entering sort of consultancy firms. Higher education and then through a graduate or advanced role. So you pick relevant degree, relevant subject area, you work through university, you join a graduate scheme, or you come in with some experience, but you've always got that sort of background knowledge and understanding. It's always quite important for bringing people into the business. But more recently, there's a lot of opportunities for apprenticeships or degree apprenticeships. So particularly within our sort of design elements, we have a lot of degree apprentices from Heriot Watt that are undertaking a civil engineering degree while working at JBA. And we have a lot of apprenticeships for things like sort of graphic design and working with learning development teams and other things like that. So taking on a lot more school leavers into, I guess, organisations that were into technical roles, into an organisation that was a lot more traditionally university, bachelor's, master's, etc., etc. So that's great. But we're also always open. We always have open adverts. We'll take applications at any time. We'll have speculative discussions with anyone at all. So we have sort of quite strict windows for when we look at graduate schemes, and we have advertised roles, but there are always open adverts. There's always people willing to have a discussion. The skills within that, it's very broad. It always has been broad, I suppose, within sort of environmental consultancy, but it's getting a lot broader. So my discipline alone, there are 20 to 30 of us, and that ranges from applied mathematicians, data scientists, and machine learning experts, I suppose. So this is just working on coastal problems, marine biologists and ecologists. We have met-ocean scientists, and we have people that are actually just focused on the sort of softer side of things. It's adaptation, engagement, working with communities, and that sort of stuff. So it's a lot. It's expanded a lot from what it was even when I started. So the advice on that is basically just, if you're interested in working in this sort of areas, is make sure you do look at picking a relevant higher education subject, because there's a lot of training provided, but it's very difficult to train people up in the knowledge. You can train people up in the skills, but not actually having that background understanding is quite tricky. There are always placement opportunities, so they serve me very well just to sort of see what was going on out there actually, and what different areas were like, and what you liked and what you didn't like. So look for placements, look for internships, and generally everybody's pretty friendly. It's quite a small world actually. Now you get a bit older, you sort of realise that you come across the same people over and over again. So yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out. Most people will have a conversation with you, I would think. So don't shy away from that. Carry on again, David.
Right.
Is that me? Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Right, I'll be seeing you I'll be with you in your breakout group. So I'll be seeing you see you in a minute. But,
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you very much. Okay, Ece.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Ece Özdemiroğlu. It's a Turkish name. C in Turkish is like J in Jane. And I love talking about environmental economics, not so much about my day-to-day, but it was a really nice challenge. So I'm the CEO of FTEC. FTEC stands for Economics for Environment Consultancy. I have two parts to my job. One is to provide technical input, strategic direction on methodologies for proposals and projects, and also doing quality assurance. That's what QA is for. Across all of our services, which we can do a little introduction in the breakout. And also I work on the business about the company directorial responsibilities, but also strategic direction for the company, commercial priorities, finance, HR, all those things that I have oversight on. Luckily, as we grew over time, I don't have to deep dive into those management issues, and I've got a bit more time to focus on the technical content itself. At the moment, we have over 50 projects, so at different levels of development. Some of them just starting, some of them finishing, some of them are very busy, and I dip in and out of those. My career, I think it's in the next slide, the career history, isn't it? So I studied economics at Istanbul University, where I'm from, in the late 80s. And I loved what economics stood for but probably not what you will think of economics as. But it was about making people's lives better and increasing welfare, well-being, not the part about moving goods and services around the markets and money. And I discovered environment. Greenpeace was very popular in the 80s in Turkey, but I thought, how can I make use of what I'm learning at uni for the benefit of nature and benefit of people? And I was looking for a master's program to study. So I did the rounds of a few universities, and I met Professor David Pearce at UCL, who'd just published this book called Blueprint for a Green Economy. And literally, I picked it up from him, ran home, read it in one sitting, and my life changed. I thought, this is what I want to do. So I managed to get into the master's the next year. And towards the end of the master's, I did a lot of applications, and I got only one rejection letter, not even responses from all the applications that I made. And I think there were three factors on this, and I say this because you might face this. Don't give up. There are always opportunities. One reason was that really consultancies were interested in environmental economics in the early 90s. UCL course was only in its second year. We were maybe totally 20 people or something in the country who had this degree. I had a funny name. My English wasn't that good, so probably my cover letter and CV weren't really that interesting. So I don't blame people who sort of probably threw it into a shredder, in my application into a shredder. However, it wasn't the end. I was going to go back to Turkey to work on a World Bank project about privatizing the energy provider in there. I'm so glad I didn't do it, because ideologically, I really disagreed with that project. I don't think the energy provider should have been privatized, at least not then. It's been since. And in a conversation with my father, actually, who said, why don't you set up a consultancy yourself if they don't give you a job? I thought, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I have no idea what that involves. And so I thought, well, but the only advice he gave, he lived in UK at the time, he said, you need a British partner. You can't do this on your own. So I went to my best mate in the masters and said, shall we do this? And we said, okay, we will. But we were 22, 23. We had not done a single day's work in this field. So we went and asked for the patronage of our two professors, who gave it gladly, because, and this is one of my main recommendations to everyone, because we had made ourselves visible to them with good work. We worked very hard during the masters. I was an assistant on a couple of their projects, consultancy projects, so they could see how I worked, and I could give something to them, not just take their knowledge and take their homework. So they helped us, and over the years, obviously, FTech grew. I never applied for a job except for one position at the UK Climate Change Committee in my 40s, which was very stressful, actually, the very stressful interview. So I'm glad I didn't have to apply to many jobs over the years. However, my job has changed a lot. We used to just work for other economists in the public sector. Now we work for a variety of different types of clients, types of individuals, as well as types of organizations. We tend to work across most of the economic sectors and environmental landscapes, including the coast, or Heat the Coast is one of the projects that we have at the moment, for example. And we now work much more for private sector, much more for investors who are investing in nature. And sometimes you find yourself repeating the same messages that you've learned 30 years ago, but you have to remind yourself that it's a new audience. It's new to them, so you have to maintain your enthusiasm and sometimes hide your disappointment why things are so slow. So you have to be on the optimistic front all the time. I also try and do some other things outside work. I think that's very important. You can't just be focused on what your career is about. So for me, my main hobby is theatre, both writing and acting. And I have brought other people to run theatre workshops in science and economics conferences, because we all need a better ability to communicate our evidence and our methodologies to people who are not as interested, but who can benefit from that. No one has time to deep dive into things that you're interested in. It's, I think, your job to make them interested in it. So you need to get to know your client, empathize with them, and also find different narratives, different ways to part with your knowledge and advice. I guess that's easy. That's a bigger challenge for us because economics is not just about numbers, even though some might tell you that it is. I think we were asked about mentors. So David Pearce and later on Professor Georgina Mace were my mentors. They both passed away, unfortunately, too soon. But Georgina was the person behind the IUCN Red List methodology. That would be the most famous thing that you might know of her. And they both had very clear ways of thinking. They were very clear at what they wanted to input into a discussion, design a methodology for approaching a problem. And I find that very, very inspiring. And they were always focused on enhance. They had immense humility about what they could contribute to in a discussion. And I try and follow their good example. And what inspires me is sort of linked to that. And I think what Doug said as well, that you keep learning in this job, and that what keeps you, helps you get out of bed every morning and this, withstand challenges. Always find something that's new to learn. What's next? I can't remember. My day to day. Yes, obviously not every day is as interesting as you would wish it to be. Some days are tough and boring. We have to admit that. But Mondays are my business day. So most of Mondays I work on business planning. We start the week, the whole team. We are 25 people at the moment. The whole team starts with a work plan meeting on Monday mornings, telling each other what our deadlines and priorities are for this and the following week. And then we have management meetings and stuff. But my colleagues tend to be much more organized, and you heard about like prioritizing projects and stuff. My day is a bit more hectic, eclectic. I'm more in the responsive mode. But if there are chunks of work that I need to do, like review a report, for example, I ask colleagues to book me days, weeks in advance. I sometimes book myself, not just for meetings, but for chunks of work that I need to focus on, for when I need to focus on. Our work, like in any consultancy, works in a cycle. So we need to do a lot of work to generate leads so that we're invited to provide proposals to tenders. We prepare proposals. And if we're lucky to win it, we then work on delivering those projects. And then at the end, we learn our lessons and repeat the cycle again. And I get involved in all elements of that cycle. I moved in my career, obviously, when I first started. I did everything. When I say everything, I really mean everything, from cleaning the office to doing literature reviews to number crunching to presenting to clients and going to conferences, etc. And now, as I said, I dip in and out of the projects in the beginning, a nice milestone somewhere in the middle and towards the end, or when there's trouble. When there's trouble, I do troubleshooting, but hopefully there isn't that much. And at the moment, we have a big internal project as to in what ways to use AI, for example. We continuously create tools to make our lives easier and to make our analysis better. But in in working in any team, I think none of those tools, whether artificial or human intelligence created, that none of that is replacement to communicating with your colleagues. They are just there to facilitate better communication, not to replace it. And I've been convinced of that many times over the years. And so finally, how do you become an environmental economist? I think everyone should, no, not everyone should, but if you want to, go for it. Lots of environmental economists at the moment have first degrees in different topics. There are sort of straight people who, like me, who studied economics at both undergrad and masters, but almost all our projects are multidisciplinary. The way FTech handles that is by partnering people who are experts in other fields or other companies. I'm sure we must have done some work with JBA, even though maybe the two of us haven't worked. But you can do that as well. You can have a degree in something else and do a postgraduate in economics. It does help to have a high enough level of economics. It sets you apart slightly. But some of economics is also a personal thing, like you thinking like an economist rather than necessarily being good at maths or modeling. And I think, you kind of are born to love how a CB cost-benefit analysis looks, and you find beauty in it. And I don't think you can be taught that. You need to have that in you. I don't know what that is. Yes. And so, yes, multidisciplinary, multilingual, these are all like what you can bring from other disciplines will be all pluses. I think we were asked, we do have internships as well. We do also have open applications, jobs@ftech.co.uk. You send your CV and a cover letter. We don't think we have apprenticeships in economics, but I'm going to check that as if it's new. But we do have paid internships. Our challenges is really at the moment, and there has been already a question about this. How do you communicate, that nature has economic value to decision makers? The current political environment is making our job challenging. It's hard to keep talking about nature and economic value, but I think economics has a lot to offer, especially in these challenging times, because we can link what the jobs, the money, the income, the profit, the GDP growth to nature very easily, but together with environmental experts, of course. Sometimes when faced with such challenges, short attention spans, political pressure, we tend to take the strategic approach of making things very, very simple. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. The right way to go about it is to make them relevant for your decision makers, not dumb it down. And that's why it's important that you understand your client, your audience, their audiences. We don't always speak to ultimate politician, for example. We might be working for civil service. And whilst doing all that, really the focus should be on the work, on the quality of the work, on the care that you have for nature and people, and success in every other area will follow from that. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Very interesting. So we better move on because we have a lot still to come. So Lauren, please.
I would try and catch us up. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lauren Burt. I am a coastal project engineer and I work for Coastal Partners. Coastal Partners is a partnership of local coastal authorities, so different district and borough councils on the south coast of England. I think there's five authorities altogether in that partnership. And what we really do is deliver coastal management on behalf of these authorities in the role of client. So that often means developing projects which reduce flood and coastal erosion risk. I can't escape a lot of what I do is project management and contract management. That's the the project in my job title, and a lot of what I do is also working with others, so liaising as well as part of the role. Next slide, please. I have decided to set out my career to date in almost building blocks, because that's how I view it. One thing has led to another, it seems, over the last 13 years since I joined the field. And it started really with a geography degree down at the University of Exeter in Cornwall with Larissa as my, she's probably my supervisor mentor back then for the geography degree. I initially went wanting to be a glaciologist, but ended up being convinced by Larissa that coastal management was where I wanted to be. However, I kind of graduated at the time of an economic downturn, so there weren't really any jobs, and that discouraged quite a few of my fellow graduates into moving into any sector to do with what we'd studied for all of that time. However, I persisted. I got an apprenticeship with the Field Studies Council as a tutor in geography. Thought that was what I wanted to do. But up came a role as a coastal scientist, and I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like what I'm interested in. But it was a 3-month position, so quite a big risk, which I took because to me it was what I wanted to do. I also understood it was 3 months, so I booked a place on a master's course at University of Southampton to bring a bit more coastal engineering and science into my knowledge and understanding. Booked onto that, took the 3-month role under the strict understanding it was 3 months. Only to be told a bit later on, how about extending it to 6 months, and how about a full-time position, which I said yes please. So that 3-month risk turned into a full-time job as a coastal scientist, collecting lots of data about our coastline, looking at how it evolved, how it moved, supporting decisions along the coast, informing development of projects later down the project life cycle. But I was also given the opportunity to study the masters that I had originally booked on part-time. So there was a point where I was given the choice of going and doing the masters full-time or having a full-time job. So I took the job, and then they obviously thought I was that keen. They said I could study part-time, and my employer actually funded the master's course for me. So I did 1 day a week on the masters, and then did my coastal scientist job, which was thoroughly exhausting, but I learned a hell of a lot in that time. At the end of my masters, I had enough experience to go for an engineer position with the same employer. So I joined the engineering team as a coastal engineer or graduate engineer. I did a lot of site work and report writing, helped with coastal management essentially of the New Forest coastline. That gave me the experience I needed to go for a different job as a coastal engineer with somebody, basically my current employer, and I've spent the last 6 years developing into more of a senior engineer. And all the building blocks in grey are the kind of things I've got involved with over time. So you can see it builds over time with experience. So I now sit where I do as a more senior engineer. I manage my own projects. I support other projects where needed. I'm a negotiator now. I'm not just an engineer. I understand the work that we do, but I also have to know how to communicate that to others to help our projects get delivered. And I have all these other skills that span all the way back to my role as a coastal scientist. So I understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how best to do it, and also importantly how to, like I say, communicate that to others. And from here I can go into either managing other people or becoming a specialist in a field. So we call them subject matter experts. So in a few years' time, hopefully I will be specialist in a certain area and I can move up to that position. Next slide, please. So day to day, I'm split over 4 different areas. I work with 60 other people. We all do different combinations of things, but I project manage a flood risk reduction scheme. It's for a small community at risk of flooding and erosion. There's complexities around landfill erosion, getting funding, which solution is best. So that's 1 day a week. I also have a small pot of money assigned to me to enhance our sustainability across our team, reduce our carbon footprint, improve our development in any way possible, and also report on how we're doing as well. So that's something I've championed myself and secured the funding for. And then the last 2 on there are for the same project, which is another flood risk reduction scheme for a small community. And I work in comms and engagement. I've turned a community from a position of oppose to flood management to a position of support over the last 5 years. It's been quite some learning. But success at the other end of it. So we now have a supported scheme we're looking to construct in the next couple of years. And then because of my relationship with the community, I am working on the legal side of negotiating property access. So we need access to construct the scheme, and this needs to be negotiated. So that's taking up a bit of my time at the moment as well. Next slide, please. So this one's about how, or kind of roots to this area of erosion and flood risk management. And I've kind of split this into 3 different areas. So I thought one way to look at it is the project life cycle. There's opportunities throughout, all the way starting from the beginning of a project, researching it, developing it, initiating it, looking at different options, designs, getting the relevant consents that you need. You could be involved in constructing these schemes, managing them when they're operational, maintaining them, or even decommissioning and repairing. So opportunities throughout that I certainly had no idea about when I entered the field. We have lots of different routes because of that. We are a 60, because we work in a partnership, we are a 60 strong, 70 strong team now. We can host apprenticeships, and we do have a couple at the moment, aligned with coastal management. We have student placements across the business. We have all different levels of student placement as well. You can enter with degrees into certain positions, masters, not always necessary, but can help. And as I can demonstrate, you can do it part-time if you want to. They accommodate that kind of study leave. We also have specialists, PhDs, all different areas across the delivery. You can come in from a construction side, so more practical qualifications. You could be a project manager, a contract manager with no specific experience in coastal. You could be a leader, manage other people, support in all different areas. You could be in business administration, and we also look for professional development through different routes of chartership as well. And the skills that you could bring are massive in range. Project management is certainly something that's becoming a more formal offer from our new colleagues. Geographic information systems, skills in that area are used every day by some of us, can't escape it. You may be specialised in hydrodynamic modelling. We have a research team. You could be stakeholder negotiator, so having the best people skills to help communities understand their risk. You might be in field survey, geomatics, topographic, know how to manage data. You might know the wider policy side of things, or you might just know how to manage other people. These are all really good skills to have in this area. I think that might be me.
It is.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Nice
Lauren.
whistle-stop
That was
talk.
excellent.
No
Thank you very
worries.
much. Okay, Rick.
Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm Rick Haynes. I am currently flooding manager for Perth and Kinross Council. We'll get on to the career thing, but suffice to say, I've got a foot in several camps from other panelists here, so we'll cover that bit in a minute. In terms of what I am and my team is responsible for, I've tried to distill it. There's a lot more to it than this. But the key features for the flooding teams in Perth and Kinross Council and other councils as well, I'm sure, revolves around the delivery of statutory responsibilities under the Flood Risk Management Scotland Act 2009. That's the primary legislation that we operate under. But it is not the be-all and end-all of what we do. If you have a spare couple of hours, you can go and read the Flood Act, as we call it, and you can see the variety of tasks that we as local authorities have to pick up. And it ranges from monitoring, mapping of relevant bodies of water, not just rivers, assessing their function for flood risk management purposes. We also design or commission the design through consultancies like Doug's at JBA, design either large-scale flood protection projects and structures, either through traditional, with air quotes, I suppose, of concrete and steel, or ideally bringing in more natural flood management aspects as well. So we seek the expert input from consultants to design, and then ideally, if it follows through nicely, build these things. It's not a given that these things get built, but that's our aspiration, certainly. So there are a lot of slow burn, long projects from the statutory side. These sort of projects can take a study, can take upwards of a year, 18 months to 2 years to commission and deliver. No spade in the ground at this point. We then go through a large scale consultation with government and other authorities as to whether these things have merit in the national standing. And then we look at, if they do, we look at securing funding through government and internal, and then delivery with all the consultation involved in local stakeholders, local property owners, because we are fundamentally focused on the protection of property and business and receptors, as we call them, from flooding. And then we get to the building of these things, which can take another couple of years. So it's a long, long process. Alongside that, we provide expert advice on flooding and drainage to the council planning service as the planning authorities in Scotland. We are non-statutory in that regard. There's a potential bone of contention from local authority flooding teams that they are non-statutory experts. We're perfectly capable of building large structures to protect properties, but we're not statutory advisors on individual planning applications. There's a bit of a disconnect there potentially, but we provide advice on whether planning applicants, whether it's an individual householder or a multinational developer, has complied with both our local guidelines and also national guidelines from a flooding perspective. And we provide advice to the planning service as to whether it is literally a thumbs up or thumbs down from us from a compliance perspective. And then the planning service are the ones that decide whether the application is competent or not. We also provide a liaison role between various council operational services, and it does vary between the councils in Scotland. That could be roads for drainage infrastructure. It could be the services operating flood schemes. It could be housing for council property flood resilience. It could be green space for managing blue-green infrastructure. We also liaise with community groups. There's a strong push in Scotland for community resilience groups with a flooding focus. Not all resilience requires to sit against flooding. So we will keep them appraised of how our various projects are going, also provide them advice on where the sort of national direction of travel is to do with resilience. We also sit squarely at the same table as SEPA, which if there are people on the call who are from down in England, there's a slight administrative change between flooding responsibilities, but to all intents and purposes see SEPA as the Environment Agency, but without the operational arm for flood management. That sits with the local authorities. But they are the warn and inform agency for Scotland for flooding. So we work closely with them. Personally in Perth, we have a rather sizable flood scheme that has a disproportionate number of floodgates. It's got over 80 manually operated floodgates that we are responsible for. We work with SEPA to take their warning and service as a trigger mechanism for when we start opening and closing gates. So we work very closely with them on an operational basis. Other agencies wraps up a number of people. Nature Scot, Dynamic Coast specifically. I now have a very limited coastal remit, which is a marked change to my previous role at Fife Council. But we still have a tidal stretch of the Tay to consider as part of the trigger mechanism for the scheme. So we still talk with Dynamic Coast and Nature Scot for environmental designations. We have to consider habitats along the way. And Scottish Water. Our urban areas have drainage infrastructure, and it's a mixture of formats and a mixture of ownerships. So obviously these things are designed to take both surface water and excess fluvial water, river water. So we have to work very closely with them, make sure our various projects are aligned in delivery effectiveness and timescales. So there are a lot of other agencies. There are some smaller ones that come and go as well, whether it's research projects. I did work in Fife with the hydrodation team out of Stirling. I'm here talking with you guys and CoStar and have bumped into Larissa a number of times. So there are other research and commercial agencies that come and go depending on the project.
Sorry,
so that's
Rick,
a whistle-stop tour.
Sorry, due to my lousy chairing, we're really running out of time.
Okay,
so I've been enjoying everyone's
very
talk so much, but so we're gonna have to rattle through the last bit.
Okay,
we've got one more
slide,
speaker.
Please. Yeah, next slide. I've helpfully dropped off all of my academics, but as a geography graduate, a master's in remote sensing, and then a PhD under the tutelage of Doug's father up here in Edinburgh. So we don't move far in Scotland. I started, this is where I say I've got a foot in many camps. I started as a consultant engineer in Glasgow with Fairhurst Consulting Engineers, environmental engineer doing flood risk assessments, drainage designs, SUDs, contributing to environmental reports. I then moved into SEPA as a strategic flood risk specialist. I led the surface water hazard maps that you see online at the minute as a project, and we also had a duty role for the flood forecasting and warning service. I was a flood advisor, ensuring systems were operational, staff were well rested and functional and capable, and providing injects to the SCORE environment when we had severe flood events. I then moved to a different public role. I was a lead consultant covering flooding, shoreline and harbours, and that was a mixture of strategic and operational. I had 11 harbours and piers to manage. I had all the shoreline from Newborough on the north coast on the Tay, round St Andrews in towards the Forth, and then I had inland for rivers and surface water flooding to manage in a strategic sense. And now flooding manager. For the last 18 months, I have been chair of CIWEM Scotland, but I've been on the committee since 2016, and this year started as co-chair for the National Flood Resilience Strategy Implementation and Governance Group, which is a massive mouthful. It's the next iteration of flood risk management from a policy perspective, looking more at resilience. Thank you. I was about to say next. If these slides are going to be shared, there are a lot of words on them, and I'm more than comfortable to just skip through using the headings, and people can read them at their own quote unquote leisure. Okay. We have a lot of projects underway, north of 20, much like Doug. So there's a lot of checking in about where projects are going because they are externally delivered to us. We do effectively a lot of project management work and oversight. So it's not exciting checking off early warnings and compensation events from an NEC project management perspective, but it's a necessary task to do. So there's a lot of project management. There's a lot of partnership working and interagency dialogue to keep us all right and up to speed. We have the statutory duties and compliance. So I manage 2 watercourse inspectors that are out and about, beetling around the countryside in vans, making sure that beavers haven't blocked all the watercourses in the urban areas where they shouldn't be, and we're more than happy for them to be out in the rural areas where they don't cause an impact to people's houses. So it's a balance. And stakeholder and community engagement. I'm always talking to and at people, whether they listen and pay it and we work together is part of the process. So there's a lot of variety. Yep, next slide. Happy to move on. So again, there's a lot here because I've come from both private and public sector. You don't necessarily have to be in any particular stream to go down environmental engineering and flooding the way that I have. I'm a geographer. I have a PhD from a civil engineering department, but it was socioeconomics linked. So it's flexible. If you have a desire and a drive to work in that area, the reality is you bring your skills to the employer. And I was very lucky when I moved to Fairhurst. They saw a way to not put me in a pigeonhole, but create a pigeonhole for me, if that makes sense. My skills were useful to them, so they found a way to make it work. I am chartered. I'm now a fellow of CIWEM, but that was something that evolved off the back of private sector work, where it is more critical for the business and the commercial side to become chartered. The sort of technical and professional skills that you bring are all listed there, you know, nature-based solutions, SUDS, GIS, a lot of things have been mentioned before. How do we get into private sector working? Careers fairs, direct applications, LinkedIn is the thing, and Indeed as adverts. In public sector, it's a little bit more difficult. We are very tied by public finances. We do not take open applications. If we have a role and a vacancy, we will advertise it through those 2 linked pages there, which I've helpfully put in for people to use later. My Job Scotland is a key one for us. And we will explore whatever skills people bring. And I've had a variety of skill bases brought to me, despite the advert put out in the public domain. So there's a lot of different areas to look at, whether it's policy is your interest, whether it's something specifically technical, most of these things are applied though. I'm an applications person. I'm not focused on policy development or that sort of realm. I like to see things being delivered because that's for the benefit of my I work for the public. So my boss, the public, I have to do my job for them. Thank you. There you go. End of slide. I tried to rattle through.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Susan, please.
Good afternoon. I will try and be really quick. My name is Susan Beach. I am a senior engineer with the Highland Council. I am also chair of the Scots Flood Risk Management Working Group, which works at a national level. SCOT stands for the Scottish Collaboration of Transportation Specialists, includes all 32 local authorities and a variety of other organisations such as Transport Scotland and Network Rail. So on a day, my job, I deliver flood schemes and works on the ground. I do surveys and supervision of contractors, consultants. I undertake development of contracts, so that's writing your scoping documents right through to your NEC contracts. I have just delivered the Highland-wide Regional Coastal Change Adaptation Plan for the Council, which includes the islands that's associated with the Highland Council area. Next slide.
Oops, sorry.
So I was asked about my career journey. They asked who my inspirations were, and on this I put my mum and dad. My dad worked with fresh water, drinking water and did all the big reservoirs, and I've been working with or around them for a very long time. My mum told me I could do anything, and I have. I got into this through taking a late degree. I went back and I studied when I had 2 children. I did an honours degree in environmental science and geography and followed it up with a PG in urban water and environmental management at Abertay. And when I went to work for Perth and Kinross Council, they then put me through my HNC in civil engineering to give me a balance between the environment and the engineering side. I was lucky when I graduated, the legislation had just changed, so they were moving more towards an environmental element. I came in as a summer student in Perth and Kinross Council, where I actually walked water courses and checked to see if there was any problems with them, mapped them, built a reference system around them, looked at the inspection system, and then moved on to become a technical assistant with Perth and Kinross Council, gaining a little bit more on the road side along with the water side, taking on a bit more responsibility for the environmental issues with the water. Then I became a technician, which again built more of an emergency role into my job, which then developed into the flooding officer role, where I was actually physically out when flooding occurred within Perth and Kinross Council area. So if it flooded, I worked with emergency partners like the ambulance, the fire service, anybody that needed to deliver the police were all out on site. I became an engineer with Perth and Kinross, and then I moved into a senior engineer role, first with South Lanarkshire Council, and then up into the Highland Council. So the South Lanarkshire Council was particularly orientated towards combined waste systems and water systems. Didn't enjoy it as much as I did the big rivers, hence the move back up to the Highland Council, where big rivers and coastal are now within my remit. Pivotal moments, probably going back to education when I had my kids. My first post as a summer student, and the first time I ever did emergency response, because it really brought home the power of water and the impact on people, and it's always stayed with me. My biggest milestone, again, gaining my degree, because I was told at school I couldn't do it. Well, I have, and I proved it good and proper. I've been the first female flooding officer in Scotland. I was the first female to actually undertake winter maintenance and emergency response for the local authorities in Scotland. And the biggest thing was making the difference to people that I worked with after flooding and during flooding. My biggest challenge was being accepted in a male-dominated world, and I cannot express my pleasure that there are so many females in the industry now, and it's well balanced between males and females. My biggest achievements, again, my degree, helping people in their worst moments, influence, guidance and legislation. I helped develop the 2009 Flood Risk Management Act, along with all the statutory guidance that went along with it. And I've been fortunate enough to have people come and work as summer students alongside me, and then they have went into this field, and knowing that somebody's been inspired enough to do that is a really big thing. My mentors included my parents, Professor Alan Verity of Dundee University and Dr. Andrew Black of Dundee University, and colleagues that I worked with like Adam Olney, Jim Valentine and Willie Mahoney, who always believed, encouraged and pushed me to do better. Next slide. My day-to-day, project development, management consultants, contractors, developing contract documents, delivering projects on site, such as the Drum the Rocket Flood Protection Scheme, which I delivered in 2020 to 2022, which was done during the height of COVID. That was an interesting thing because everything was done within COVID parameters. Even though we were on site, it was quite challenging. I monitor potential storm impacts, ensure infrastructure is optimised to reduce risk where possible. That means like clearing screens, making sure flat valves are working, all of those things that can cause an issue during heavy rainfall. And I'm always available to assist if I'm called out during an emergency. My work focuses on delivering the actions as previously been mentioned from the SEPA flood risk management strategies and the local flood risk management plans. These basically lay out what actions our team, the risk management team, should do over a certain cycle, which is, we're currently in the second cycle, so we'll be moving on to the third cycle shortly. They're 6-year cycles, and also recently we've been doing a lot more in coastal change adaptation plans, and we've been able to bring in coastal case study funding, which has allowed Doug not to work in my contract this week, but I'll forgive him. So we've been able to do that.
Somebody's working on it, Susan. Somebody's working on it.
Yeah, Katie. I know Katie is. So we're doing a study in all, which will be a local plan, coastal climate change adaptation plan. And we're also going to be looking at sediment transfer, like putting sediment out with your tidal influence and then watching how it comes inshore to see how the buds, the beneficial use of dredged sediment, is that correct, Doug? Which is basically taking anything that's been taken out of a harbour and then reusing it to help restabilise banks or dune systems. So we're looking at how that material travels through from the intertidal zone into the beach area. That will be a 2 to 3 year project. And then my day-to-day is varied. Sometimes it's very office based, depending on the stage of a project, or alternatively, I could be delivering something on the ground, like the flood schemes or just general improvement works. Depends where you are. If I'm in the office, it's a bit more boring. If I'm out on site, it's a bit more interesting, but that's life. Next slide. Getting into it, formal education or training, I think the route depends on what interests you and where you're going to look to get work experience. Go to people, ask contractors, ask consultants, ask local authorities if they've got anything coming up. Volunteering is a great opportunity. There's a lot of groups up here like Mossy Earth, and there's a few associated with the Moray Firth. They are all doing voluntary stuff. There's a group in Nairn that's doing voluntary stuff. Working from there builds up your experience. It can help you understand where you really want to be. There's very much a change now from what was an industry where it was very civil engineer dominated, and we're seeing a lot more variation in the posts. So we've got archaeologists, ecologists, quantity surveyors, project managers, admin, NEC gurus, you name it, we've got it now, and it all makes for a better project because we all bring something different to it, and I think there's a route for everybody. Look at webinars, take them if they're free, look at projects that are happening in your area or in another area, because at the moment we've got the drilling going on of the A9 project, there's wind farm projects, there's coastal wind farms, there's so much more out there project-wise, and if you really look, you'll find a route that suits you, and you'll find your interest, and it can often point you in the direction you want to go academically as well. Speak to folk, talk to Nature Scott, SSCN or their equivalents down south, local authorities, consultants. Most folk will be interested in helping you, giving you a wee bit of direction and introducing potential opportunities that are available for them. As I said, volunteer for local groups, look at citizen science projects in your area, look for summer posts, but understand what you want to do, and that will make the choice you're taking and the path you're taking easier. And that's me, I think.
Well, thank you very much. That's really interesting. Sorry for my absolutely terrible chairing of this session.
Cool.
I blame you guys for your really interesting talks. It's definitely not my fault.
They were good.